that happened in U.S. history. The Louisiana Purchase was bought from France in 1803 for $15 million. The Purchase of Florida was bought from Spain in 1819 for $5 million. The Gadsden Purchase was bought from Mexico in 1853 for $10 million. And the Mexican Cession was bought from Mexico in 1848 for $15 million. Manifest Destiny was America's fate to expand west, extending its borders from the Atlantic coast to the Pacific coast. The annexation of Texas was when the Union gained Texas in 1845. The U.S.-Mexican War was a war based on the borders of the United States in 1846 and 1848. The California Gold Rush was a gold rush that happened in California in 1849. The Oregon Territory was a territory consisted of Washington, Oregon, Idaho, parts of Idaho, and Montana. The territory was gained by the United States by the Oregon Treaty between the United States and Britain. The political, economic, and social roots of Manifest Destiny is the expanding democracy, pioneering spirit, security, romanticizing the West, and future prosperity. Expanding democracy was that Americans believed they had a God-given mission to extend their democracy system. Pioneering spirit was seen as the perfect expression of American individualism. Security was occupying the middle of the continent, from coast to coast, thinking that it would discourage threats from rival powers like England, Spain, or Russia. Romanticizing the West was that Americans painted pictures, printed popular prints, and made literature as an ideal of nature. Future prosperity, many Americans believed their future prosperity was on the land and wealth to be gained from westward expansion. There were a few causes and effects from the U.S.-Mexican War. Was the border the Rio Grande or the Nueces River? President Polk declared war against Mexico, hoping to extend America's borders. The Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo was signaled the end of the war. Known as the Mexican Cession, the United States paid Mexico $10 million for territory that included California, Nevada, Utah, Arizona, Colorado, and New Mexico.
Critics of the Kansas-Nebraska Act formed a new political party, the Republican Party. Republicans agreed to let slavery continue in the South, but they opposed any further extension of slavery into any of the new territories. The Dred Scott decision questioned the power of Congress to control the spread of slavery. In 1858, Lincoln challenged Senator Stephen Douglas, author of the Kansas-Nebraska Act, to a series of formal debates. Douglas had introduced the doctrine of popular sovereignty to the slavery question. The North was the first of these areas to industrialize. It became a center for manufacturing, shipping, and small farms. Economic change with industrialization pressed the production were divided up and reorganized. Skilled craftsmen were replaced by unskilled workers who worked in large workshops or factories. Social changes. Northern cities expanded in size. Wealth became concentrated in the hands of the richest families. The West. The Appalachians had once posed an obstacle to the opening of the lands further west, but the availability of cheap land for construction of the national roads and canals opened the region to settlers. Farmers began using machines like the mechanical plow, reaper, and thrasher. By the mid-1800s, the number of settlers moving to the West increased rapidly. The attraction of the West was more than just farmland for settlers. The South. At the time of the Constitutional Convention, it appeared that slavery in the United States would die out. In the Piedmont and Appalachian regions of Virginia, North Carolina, Georgia, and Tennessee, families were mainly subsistence farmers who may have grown a few cash crops. Very few farmers had slaves. On the Atlantic coastal plain, however, plantation owners used slave labor to grow cotton, rice, and tobacco for export to northern cities and European markets. Major southern cities like New Orleans and Charleston served as part for shipping exports.
The economic differences among different regions in the United States are mainly between the North and the South. The North relied heavily on industrial products and factories, while the South relied heavily on agriculture and slavery. The West was under development and didn't have much of an economic structure, which is why the main economic differences are between the North and the South. The reasons and impact of civil disobedience in U.S. history, such as Henry David Thornton's refusal to pay tax, is that many people thought that the government was being unfair to the people and that a change was necessary. This impacted the way people thought of the government. For example, Henry David Thornton was arrested for failing to pay his taxes. He did this as an act of protest against the government for going to war with Mexico and for slavery. This is significant because it proves that he was fighting against government corruption like other civil disobedience cases.
There were a couple of compromises that kept peace for a while, starting with the Missouri Compromise. Basically, it stated no slaves above the line 3630, except for Missouri. Then the Kansas-Nebraska Act was that the Kansas and Nebraska territories could have slaves if they wanted to. The Compromise of 1850 was created by Henry Clay. There was a debate whether the states from the Mexican Cession should be slave states or free states. The result was that California would be a free state, but Congress had to pass a tighter fugitive slave law, letting southern slave owners hunt down slaves that fled to the north.
The contributions of significant political and social military leaders such as Frederick Douglass was that they influenced the public and inspired other people through their words and actions. According to biography.com, Frederick Douglass, like many other significant leaders, influenced people's image or picture of how the United States would grow as a country and really change their perspective on how they wanted their country to grow. This is significant because it shows how the significant political, social, and military leaders influenced and inspired the people of the United States.
In the 19th century, U.S. Manifest Destiny was a belief that was widely held that the destiny of American settlers was to expand and move across the continent to spread their traditions and their institutions. Many Americans believed that God blessed the growth of the American nation and even demanded of them to actively work on it. The settlers firmly believed in the virtue of American people and the mission to impose their virtues, mainly Puritan way of life on everybody else. The term of Manifest Destiny first appeared in a newspaper article on the annexation of Texas, in addition from July through August of the United States magazine, Democratic Review, in 1845. Americans were considered heathens by Christianizing the tribes. The fur trade had been dominated by European trading companies since colonial times. Expanding the boundaries of the United States was in many ways a cultural war as well. The desire of Southerners to find more land suitable for cotton cultivation would eventually spread slavery to these regions. Manifest Destiny touched on issues of religion, money, race, patriotism, and morality. These clashed in the 1840s as a truly great drama of regional conflict began to unfold. The abolitionist movement was a social and political push for the immediate emancipation of all slaves and the end of racial discrimination and segregation. Advocating for emancipation separated abolitionists from more moderate anti-slavery advocates who argued for gradual emancipation. The abolitionist movement became increasingly prominent in northern churches and politics beginning in the 1830s, which contributed to the regional animosity between North and South leading up to the Civil War.